Hey, I'm Whitley. I was in charge of games while I was there. Danny helped me the first day, and then Austin helped me for the rest. And yep, games is interesting because it wasn't really. You would think you wouldn't have to force kids to play games, but it was actually a bigger challenge. We played a lot of toilet tag. That was the favorite. If you've never played toilet tag, it's just like freeze tag, but when you get tagged, you stick your flusher out. When you flush, you can run again. The kids ate that up. I don't know if it was potty humor or what, but they like that. Yeah, so I just want to say to all the single ladies that I, after hearing Lisa, you speak, I didn't realize how hard it was. I kind of like to be in the front of the pack, so I mean, I appreciate y'all keeping up and fighting through what was probably the equivalent of, 2 days hell week for me, so good job, and I'm glad that y'all are still walking. I think that's awesome. So, well, everyone's pretty much covered a lot of what I originally thought I would talk about, which I kind of figured since I was going last. So, without breaking down too hard, sorry.
Tell it like it is.
Yeah, so as you can see, it was pretty emotional and changing for me. Okay, on Friday, it was the last day, and we went to the park, a different park than we had been going to that day, and the second to last group, this girl was sitting by me while all the other kids were playing, and I didn't recognize her. Sorry, so we started talking, and she was just so calm and mature. And a lot of y'all that met her, some of you might not have. Her name's Kaiva, and Kaiva loves Miss Becky here, and she loves everybody. And we got to talking, and then games was over. We didn't get to talk that much because a kid ran off, and so it got kind of busy. But after camp was over and at dinner at Sarah's house, she and I were talking outside, and I just asked her, I was like, I'm just getting to know her because she was so special. She just stood out to me. Mm-hmm. And I asked her, I was like, how are you? I said, how are you so mature? You're different than all these other people I've seen your age. She's 14. And she said, well, my home life, it's forced me to kind of grow up a little bit faster. And I had to kind of, get mature quicker. And I asked her why, or to explain. Mm-hmm. She said, well, I didn't know for a long time, but I recently figured out that my mom's been on drugs for 20 years. I could just she's never told me, but I figured it out because I'm smart, which she is very smart. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, wow. So you kind of had to take responsibilities that she hasn't been able to do. And she's like, yeah, and she's the youngest. She's got 2 older siblings. One's 18, one's 25. And so we kept talking, and this girl, she's awesome. So got her Facebook and her phone number. We've been talking since camp. Anyway, so while we were there, she told me that she's just desperately trying to get out of the Bronx. And she's applying for this, it's called Mercy Ministries. It's a school in Tennessee that she's trying to get into. It's a really long application process, and she's taking care of it all by herself. It's basically like applying for college, which when I was 17, thought that was a hard thing to do. But she's here 14, just trying to find a way to
get out of there.
Get out of this situation she's in, because, I mean, she loves her mom, and she loves her family and her friends, but she realizes that she told me, I'm a Christian, but it's hard to be here. It's hard with all this stuff around. And so, anyway, talking to her has just been such a blessing for me, because I realize all this stuff I have that I just take for granted. Mm-hmm. Like when I was gone, while my brother was driving my car, it broke. And I was telling her that she asked me what I was doing Tuesday morning. I said, I just went with Kevin to get a part to fix my car. It's kind of older, so we have to fix it every now and then. She's like, I wish I had a car. And I was just like, yeah, I'm glad I have one too. Every day I've just been, she's kind of, I feel like she's like my little sister now. And she told me, I feel like you're my sister because it seems like you care about me. And I was like, of course I care about you. You're awesome. And so long story short, I guess, I don't know when or what her future holds, if she'll get into that school or not, but tell my mom about her. And if it works out, which it's going to be complicated, but we want to have her come live with us if it's what she wants, and if it, I don't even know if it's possible, but I just ask y'all to pray about her and pray for the Bronx. And
didn't she and Carly Skype you?
Yeah.
They've already even talked. Carly's still there and hanging out with Kaiba at Sarah's house. Yeah. So they're having fun. They've Skyped her because they missed her already.
Yeah, and we Skyped. So. Kaiba really wanted to meet my mom, and then my mom told her, she messaged her after that and said that she was so glad to meet my mom, and she feels like my mom's already her second white mom because Becky's her first white mom. So.
And Kaiba's highlight of her class when she came to Carly and I's class, we taught music and dance. She loved to laugh at me dancing. She loved that. She said, "You are so white." I'm like, I know, right? She loved to laugh at me, and I loved for her to laugh at me.
Yeah, that's one.
Teach her how to two-step?
Hey, I learned the Dougie and the Cat Daddy from her.
Yeah, that's the cool thing about Kaiba is she has the life she has, but when we talk, I mean, she laughs so much it just like breaks up the conversation because she'll just laugh at anything, and she's just giggling. She's so happy, and she really loves the Lord. And so again, just pray for her and pray for everything that's going on there. And thank you for praying for us while we were there. So.
And Whitley was awesome. Everybody was so awesome. Just like I asked Terry in the car, we were driving to his dad's 87th birthday celebration to Abilene and back yesterday. And I said, what do you think was the standout for you on this whole week? And he said, how everyone got along so well, and how we, just how much we love each other and we're so comfortable with each other. And I think that is so true of this church family and just overall. So when we've already been able to be ourselves here, when you take us out of the city, we still act like ourselves, but we already know. So I mean, I love that. I just love it. And Whitley was such a treasure, and Kevin, just thank you guys for coming. I think that everybody. But Whitley, I love you, and you're so tender, and Kaiva is so dear to us too. So, yeah. Thanks.
Whitley was the last to talk about the events, I guess, but still more. I was maybe one of the last ones to decide to go on the trip. I did a lot of reading leading into it. I picked up several books. One of them was called A Hole in Our Gospel. It's written by the fellow that's the president of World Vision, has been for maybe a decade now. Another was called When Helping Hurts, and the object of that was when what we do actually does more harm than good, and how to help in a way that doesn't harm. Another was a book called Radical, written by David Platt, who's a preacher in Alabama. And as I read these books, they seem to be saying a lot of the same things as some other books before. Some of y'all have read some of the Shane Claiborne stuff and a lot of books. And really, all of these authors were saying the same kinds of things that Sarah's saying. She just hasn't written her book yet. But they're saying things. Can I have the next slide? I'll just look at one. These were... David Platt was talking about how whenever you see large crowds, and I noticed that around Jesus, that he always got rid of them. Rather than saying, I've got it made, he said things that kind of made people understand really what he was asking for. And this is one of those passages. Large crowds are there, and he says, if anyone comes to me and doesn't hate his father, his mother, his wife, his children, his brothers, his sisters, yes, even his own life. Now, isn't that a strange one? Even his own life. then he can't be my disciple. And if you don't carry your cross, which is to die, of course, and follow me, you can't be my disciple. And he goes on and tells a couple stories. What if about a guy that wants to build a tower? He has to first figure out if he can afford to build it, or else he gets halfway done and throws it away. Or there's a king, and he says, what if he's about to go to war? Doesn't he count the cost and see if he can, with his armies, defeat the other guy with his armies? And if he can't, doesn't he sue for peace? And he looks at those and he says, in the same way, any of you who does not give up everything he has cannot be my disciple. And Luke is telling this story, and he emphasizes it with several others. He tells the story of the rich man and Lazarus. You remember the story, and the rich man didn't kill anybody. We're not told that he lied to anybody. He just lived in a gated community, and there was a poor man that he passed all the time, and he never did anything for him. And Jesus said in the end, that poor man's, he said, I picture he's going to be at Abraham's side in paradise, and the rich man is going to be wondering what he did wrong. And Luke goes on another couple chapters later, he tells a story of a rich young ruler. And the guy says, what do I do to inherit eternal life? And he keeps badgering Jesus, and Jesus says, you know the commandments. And he says, hot dog. I've done that all my life because I've never killed anyone, never cheated on my wife. This is great. And Jesus says, well, fine, you like one thing. Sell everything you've got, give it to the poor. And then come follow me. And Jesus talks in that story, he says, how hard it is for the rich to enter the kingdom of heaven. Peter says, if the rich can't get in, who can? And Jesus says, it's only possible with God. And Peter says, we've given up everything to follow you. That's what the first disciples did, isn't it? And Jesus said, you'll get many more times more than that in this life and the life to come. There's a story in Luke as well about another fellow. He had a bumper crop. And if you're familiar with the story in Luke 12, you remember the fellow scratched his head to figure out what he was going to do with all the wealth that he had. And he says, I got it. I'm going to tear down my barns and build bigger ones. And I've got my IRA taken care of, right? And Jesus said that God's answer was, you fool. Because tonight you die. And then who's going to have your stuff? The next slide. All these books talk about the same kind of thing. This is the one, if you've been in school, and just all of us have been in school at some point, and if the teacher ever said, this is what's going to be on the final exam, then I don't study the other chapters. I only study this one. And this is Jesus. And he says, this is what's on the final exam when I come, in verse 35 where it's bold. He says to those people that he's welcoming in, he says, for I was hungry and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you invited me in. I needed clothes, you clothed me. I was sick and you looked after me. I was in prison and you came to visit me. And that's the final exam. And so I was real hesitant to go on this trip because to me it meant that I needed to do a lot more than I was. I needed to take things a lot more seriously than I was. The next slide, this is the hole in the gospel. The guy Richard Stern's the president of World Vision, and he has a beautiful story of how he eventually came to be there. But he has a chapter that's called 100 Crashing Jetliners, and he talks about when a jet plane crashes, how terrible we feel for all those people, and it's in the news, and everyone's trying to figure out what went wrong, what can we do to make sure that plane doesn't crash again, and on it goes. And he says, more than 26,500 children died yesterday of preventable causes related to their poverty. Mostly, some of them get diarrhea and they need medicine for that. They don't have drinking water that they can drink without maybe hauling miles to get there. And it will happen again today, August the 12th, 2012. And tomorrow, the day after that. Almost 10 million children will be dead in the course of a year. So why does the crash of a single plane dominate the front pages of newspapers across the world while the equivalent of 100 planes filled with children crashing daily never reaches our ears? And even though we now have the awareness, the access, and the ability to stop it, why have we chosen not to? Perhaps one reason is that these kids who are dying are not our kids. They're somebody else's. Obviously, they've got books worth of wonderful stories and encouraging things and challenges, but I just want to apply that a little bit to Sarah. I know that our temptation is to say to Sarah that we can really see that God has called her to the South Bronx, and that would be absolutely true. But I think it misses the point for many of us is that we think for some reason that Sarah or Shane Claiborne or Richard Stern or David Platt or some of these people had a burning bush experience. That God came down to them and there was this bush that was on fire and he says, "This is holy ground, take off your shoes." And correct me, but it didn't happen that way. Sarah she looked at these passages that we're looking at and she said, what does God want a Christian to do? She said, if I were going to find Jesus in New York, where would I find him? And she said, I can look at the scripture and I can see that Jesus would be with the sinners. That Jesus I wouldn't go looking for him in his comfortable house, in his comfortable neighborhood, driving his comfortable car to his comfortable job and reading the comforting passage of scripture. She said Jesus was among the prostitutes and the tax collectors, which was the big kind of thief back then. And so she said, if I'm to be Jesus' disciple and I'm here in New York, then where should I be? And she went down to the police and said, I want to see the statistics. And she found what they said was the worst place that a person could live in New York. And so she started looking, she and a few others started looking for a place to live. And maybe one of the God things is that after she got the house on Beekman Street, she learned that not only was she in the worst neighborhood, but she was on the worst street. And what a difference it's made, changing our lives and others. So anyway, I remember someone telling me one time to notice in the Bible how often that when people were trying to reach the lost, they reached the household. That when Cornelius sent for Peter, Cornelius grabbed his whole household. That you have this sense when people are on the brink of something good, they want to do it with others. And so what I was tasked with is the so what. And what I would like to do, and I've been talking to a few folks already, but not nearly most of you. But I'd like for us to maybe go through one or two of these books together. I thought as I was reading them, I need some time. I want to do a book report here. But it would be far better if we could all read the books together and talk about them. And so this next week, we'll talk some more through the week and see if we can't have something and maybe get together, whether it's Sunday night group, Monday night group, more than one, and kind of start working through some of these books and see what it means, because we've been infected, I think. We've gone to New York and we've come back and we've cried, and there's stories like that all around us to be had. And so those are the things, I guess, for us to be praying about for ourselves and where we go next from here until a year from now when we go back.
Let me say that I was incredibly proud, in the positive sense, BJ, of our people, of my friends. Unbelievable. Sarah's unbelievable. Ben's unbelievable. Lawrence, unbelievable. Every one of us should be unbelievable. I am so tired of Christians being so much like everybody else. We should be unbelievable. There's a passage in Ephesians 6 that I think sums up well Beekman Street. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood. Our struggle is not against kids and gang members and really sucky parents. and cops who don't care and teachers who don't teach and a system that is just collapsing. Our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. This is a battle for the souls of these kids. And it is a battle not with their deadbeat dad or whatever. It is a battle with Satan. Our battle is not with people. Our battle is with Satan. Every person is precious. Every person is precious. And every person is targeted by the enemy, the principalities and the powers of this dark, dark world. And our job is to be just a little bit of light. To be a little bit of light. To be unbelievable in an incredibly dark and cynical world. And so, CCC family, it's time for us to be unbelievable.